Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Chaos at Kentucky, as crazy as it is, it pales in comparison to the craziness right across the street, right across the road at the beautiful Yum Center in Louisville. Because Louisville, unless something has happened in the last 30 minutes since I came on air, Louisville is very much still looking for a basketball coach. And you think that you think there's a mess at the University of Kentucky? I am here to tell you it is 1,000 times worse at Louisville. So when we last left the Louisville situation, so the Louisville situation is crazy. So we've talked about this, I think, as much as any show. But Scott Drew, I think, was a legitimate candidate at one point. I think he more than took a phone call at Louisville, okay? You don't get him. You don't get Dusty May. Then we find out on Saturday that Dusty May isn't coming. And it started to feel like a little bit of a scramble drill, okay? First, we hear Shaheen Holloway, Amir Abdur-Rahim from USF, South Florida, and of course, on top of that, Pat Kelsey. Then we wake up and we hear on Monday, could it be Josh Schertz, the head coach at Indiana State, just led them to a 28-29 win season. Then the story of the day on Tuesday, from Jody Demling, who's covered Louisville forever. Then you see Pat Forty tweeting about it. Then you see Jeff Goodman tweeting about it. Is it possible that Louisville is about to hire a Pitino, but not the Pitino any Louisville fans want? I'm talking about Richard Pitino. Is Richard Pitino really about to be the next head coach at Louisville? I don't know. But I will tell you, if that is how this ends, I think this could be one of the most disastrous decisions that we have ever seen on the coaching carousel. Okay? So let's go ahead and dive into why that would be disastrous. First of all, I'm not rooting against Richard Pitino. I don't know him. Everybody who does says, like, greatest guy in the world. Like, just a good guy. Everybody likes him. Easy to get along with, whatever. But I am here to tell you, unless Louisville isn't nearly as good of a job as I thought it was, there is nothing on that guy's resume that makes me believe that he should be the Louisville head coach, okay? He has been a head coach for 12 years in college basketball. He got 8 years at Minnesota, 2 NCAA tournaments. Now, admittedly, Minnesota is a very hard job. I'm not here to criticize him because he wasn't getting to Final Fours at Minnesota. But 8 years at Minnesota, a 534 winning percentage, 141 and 123, 54 and 96 in the Big Ten. He gets fired after the 2021 season. This was his third year at New Mexico. I actually think they were pretty good, but as we found out, they got into the tournament only after winning the Mountain West tournament. So if they don't win the Mountain West tournament, we are talking about going 0 for 3 at New Mexico in the NCAA tournament. They get in, credit to him. But if you look at this guy, there is just nothing on that resume that indicates that he should be the Louisville head coach. And so what this says to me is kind of exactly what I just said at Kentucky, only it's heightened even more. This to me is not a byproduct. I don't blame Richard Pitino. I don't even blame Kenny Payne. What I blame is an administration that is very clearly scrambling and very clearly does not know what it's doing, or at least publicly does not appear to know what it is doing, okay? So for people that aren't following, okay, this is the timeline at Louisville. I think all along, Scott Drew was the pie in the sky. Can we make it happen? As I've said on this show before, my understanding is it was more than a quick phone call. It was more than Louisville calling and Scott Drew saying, I'm good. Don't even, or calling his agent and his agent saying Scott's not interested. I think it got a little further than that, but very clearly Scott Drew wasn't interested. I think at that point, it was pretty obvious Scott Drew was the pie in the sky. But okay, if Scott Drew says no, Dusty May, no doubt about it, is 100% going to say yes. Well, what ends up happening as Dusty May says, getting all sorts of weird texts here, forgive me. So Dusty May, very clear. So let me even backtrack. Scott Drew says no. Well, it's okay because we got Dusty May in the can. If Scott Drew says no, we'll hire Dusty May, we'll throw a parade, whatever. As I discussed on Sunday, I don't think anyone in that administration, or at least Josh Hurd, ever took the time to consider that Dusty May might say no. I'll take it a step further. I truly believe in my heart of hearts, Dusty May was always their favorite if Scott Drew said no. I don't know if Louisville was ever Dusty May's favorite. And so since that happened, it is so obvious that there was no backup plan. And so to me, that speaks to incompetence from Josh Hurd, the AD, and it's a level of unacceptability at Louisville. And by the way, let me say this. I know I used to work for KSR. I know I did whatever. I feel bad for Louisville fans. Listen, I grew up. Louisville was awesome. Louisville was one of the best programs in college basketball, okay? And so I only bring it up. This should never be the way that it is right now. And it speaks to a level of incompetence. Kenny Payne, listen, was not the right hire. But as we're now seeing, maybe it's a little bit more chaotic behind the scenes at Louisville than we realized. Maybe it's not all Kenny Payne's fault that his team stunk, okay? Now, it's still a lot of Kenny Payne's fault. Anyway, I bring it up because just look at the situation. And this, to me, falls on the AD. One, an AD always has a plan. You always hear the great ADs. They have a list in their desk of 2, 3, 4 names for every job on their campus that they oversee. We read the stories. Chris Lowe was covering that Nick Saban retirement. Greg Byrne has had a list in his desk for years that he's constantly updating and tweaking and evaluating, and Kalen DeBoer got on there in the last year. But when Nick Saban made that announcement, he was ready to talk to Mike Norvell, Sark, and Kalen DeBoer, obviously. And so if you're Josh Hurd, there's not an excuse that your number one choice said no, but really your real number one choice that you thought you were going to get said no. You have to have a better plan. But then let me take it a step further. You have to, one, know who could actually say yes. So the Shaheen Holloway stuff, we'll see if it happens. As soon as I heard that, what did I say on Sunday's show? I said, does he really want the job? Or is he trying to leverage his alma mater to get more NIL money? And oh, by the way, they're still in the NIT. So if you're going to interview him, you better make sure he says yes, because they might not be able to do the introductory press conference for another 4 or 5 days. Another thing, if Josh Schertz, the Indiana State coach, is your guy, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I actually think he's a better candidate than Richard Pitino. Was a successful, highly successful D2 head coach, multiple Final Fours, gets to Indiana State. They're awesome in year 2, should have been in the NCAA tournament. But I only bring it up because if that's your guy, have confidence, have faith, go to the podium, say, this is our guy, this is who we wanted all along. But you can't flip-flop, you can't waffle, you can't this, you can't that. And now it's chaos in Louisville. I don't think Richard Pitino is the answer. I don't think he has a resume warranting being the Louisville head coach. And then let me take this another step further, is that you talk about just problems at Louisville. You know what was trending on Tuesday afternoon on Twitter? Jurich. You know who Tom Jurich is? He's the former AD. And so this goes back to what I talked about on Sunday's show. For whatever reason, well, I know the reasons. Louisville obviously has a checkered past, a checkered background, a checkered whatever. We know about the NCAA investigations, and I don't care. This is not poke at Louisville time. But it's clear that they are not taking anyone with any sort of quote-unquote baggage at a previous stop. Now, I think Will Wade is a guy you should call. Will Wade won an SEC championship at LSU. He can win big ACC championships immediately at Louisville, but you're not going to call him. Eric Musselman, we'll get to him in a minute with USC because that's kind of interesting, but Eric Musselman does not appear to be a candidate. I don't understand why. Jerome Tang does not appear to be a candidate. I don't understand why. But all this speaks to, from me, in my opinion, is utter incompetence. You cannot wait. You cannot waffle. You cannot wonder. You have to have answers, and you have to be ready to go. If Richard Pitino gets the job, I wish him nothing but the best. It's good for my business if Louisville is good at basketball. Okay? Louisville is the biggest college basketball market in America in terms of ratings and interest and whatever. A lot of Kentucky fans, a lot of Louisville fans. But I just don't believe he's the guy, but I just don't like the process that led to us getting here. So we'll see what happens with Louisville, but you just talk about a process that has truly, truly been chaotic. I have never seen one quite like Louisville.